Welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Where we cover everything Dynamics great and small. So Bart, you know what? It's like tomorrow is meteorological summer. So it's like for us, it's like at
June.
least for me, it's my favorite season. You know, my youngest has graduated from high school. It's got the summer off,
And,
so it's just an awesome time of year.
and it's awesome that our youngest are the same age. We got a graduate coming as well. Today's the last day of classes for ours. So this is going to
Oh,
be a fun week next week as he's kind of coasting until the actual graduation happens. So,
yeah, he's gonna put some effort in, right? Yeah.
right.
So, yeah.
So congrats to
Well,
you.
yeah, congrats to Parker and Danny. It's like congratulations, kids. Good kids.
You bet.
But actually, it's like, talking about like summer and things, it's like I have a joke. I actually have a couple
Really?
jokes. For
Okay,
They're horrible, right? But it's
lead
like, but I
off.
really,
We love the horrible dad joke.
so the first one's like, okay, how do you know the ocean is friendly?
It's always waving.
Nailed it. Bam. I like that one. It was just good. That was good. Okay, what do you got for me, Bart?
All right. So with the transformation of Microsoft into a AI company or Copilot company, I thought we probably ought to plan for what should we do if we need to like undo some of this stuff and find the opposite of AI. So what do you think the
Um,
opposite of AI would be? It would be the antithesis.
um, um, IA. So antithesis is like stupid. I don't know.
Natural stupidity.
Natural stupidity. Okay.
We got that in plenty,
I was
right?
like, I was on the same. I was kind of heading that
Yeah,
direction.
you're
Okay,
in the
that's
right
okay.
vein. You
Okay,
bet.
yeah. It's like we'll have to go through some computer jokes again. But I got another one. It's another summer one, another easy one too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
again, it's like these tickle me since I was a kid, right? Do fish go on vacation? It's topical.
No. Not at
No,
all.
they're always in school.
They're always in school. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
all
yes,
right,
yes.
okay. So that was terrible too, but I really, I really liked it. Okay, again, we hope our content's way better than our jokes. What do you got, Bart?
All right. Well, as most of our audience, I'm sure knows, Microsoft Build was recently held. I think it was just last week. And we had lots and lots of announcements. There have been so many other places and blogs and videos talking about all the build announcements. I'm just going to say my first three links are those build announcements, and I'm going to go right to things that are actually usable right now. Some of that stuff's still not quite turned on. Let's start with Dataverse plugins. With Dataverse plugins, if you use the Dataverse Accelerator, which is a new preview piece of Power Platform that's been there for a while, the newest piece of the Dataverse Accelerator is a new UI to make it a little easier to look at the logs and the runs of these plugins to understand if you're having problems or need to performance tune or things like that. So this is kind of instructions of how to do the tracing and how to consume those logs in this new Dataverse Accelerator. So for those of you who would appreciate being able to do that, it's nice to know that that tool is out there. Empower pages. Those web pages are awesome. Security has always been pretty good, but we continue to improve the way that security works in Power Pages. And we put an entire dedicated area called the Security Workspace together in the design studio of Power Pages to make it easier to monitor, protect, and manage their site all in one spot. So we've put some new capabilities in, like security scanning, that will look to see what's going on. The WAF we'll talk about quite a bit. That the WAF has been around for Power Pages for a while, but it has gotten way better in recent weeks. So we'll talk a little about what that is in a future post. But that Security Center is a consolidated place to be able to do all the configuration and monitoring of all the security things going on your Power Page. Nice enhancement. Copilot Studio, the tool to both build your custom copilots and edit your other pre-built copilots that come with the Microsoft products in low-code spaces, is getting new levels of productivity. So there were lots of things around Copilot Studio that got updated within the last 2 weeks. One of them is we decided that for the generative answers capability for using generative AI within the context of a Copilot to answer questions, giving it access to data should be way easier with the knowledge capabilities. And we exposed the ability to use the connector ecosystem across the Power Platform to be able to connect to lots and lots and lots of different data sources out there to be able to surface whatever data you said should be relevant at the other side of that connector to ground your Copilot on so it can answer questions that's being stored in those places. So take advantage of that. That is a huge step forward to make it much easier to just let your Copilot have access to the right stuff to answer the right questions about your content. And that can be live kind of database or API type connections, or it can point at repositories of documents and it will read the PDFs and the Word docs and the other stuff that's out there and answer questions based on that. So nice things that got enabled there. We've got some nice customer stories in there. And then I thought this was actually pretty cool as well, in terms of just a nice visualization to say that when you're in Copilot Studio, you can connect to these really nice APIs of the Microsoft Graph for all the stuff that's going on in your M365 area, Dataverse for all the stuff that's going on in your BizApps area for operational capabilities, and then Fabric for all the stuff you've brought together into the analytical workspaces, and give your Copilot access to whichever of those or all of those, depending on the scenario that you would like. So I thought that was actually pretty slick. And with all of it, you get semantic search. It is cached, it's indexed, it's synced, and we've got support for both. Well, I shouldn't say both, all kinds of different complex data types. So relational, non-relational, JSON, all that kind of stuff is all stuff that works. I think that's enough of an overview for now for what that ecosystem looks like, but huge step forward. In Power Automate, we did some really specific things in AI that I'm just going to call out. The first one is we got a whole new capability. So we've had desktop flows, we've had cloud flows, and we now have AI flows. So AI flows, I have not actually seen light up yet, but the announcement is awfully cool that you can basically just describe it and it will just instantiate what you need. And it will not necessarily even build a cloud flow or a desktop flow. It will build an AI flow. And so I think that should be really interesting. Along those lines, for desktop automation, one of the pain points has always been, how do I actually stitch together the right click stream and text streams and all that kind of stuff? And I can be really declarative around that if I want to, and most people end up doing that. There's been a recorder for a while, but the recorder was so, I guess, difficult to make as accurate as you wanted it to be, that a lot of people found that it almost made it harder because it got so many things wrong that you had to try to fix. Well, we've now gone a whole new way with recording that is AI recording, so that you can just record it, and then instead of it trying to capture stuff in real time that it's stitching together, it lets AI watch the video that you just recorded, and then AI will go make all the decisions of what belongs in desktop flow, what should jump out to a cloud flow because it's an API and it can tell that, and what UI elements should I actually look at. It's a pretty cool new jump forward in how to make that stuff work. And then also in the Power Automate service, we've put all kinds of great reporting out there to help you monitor what's going on in your cloud flows, in your desktop flows, and now in the AI flows, so that you can understand it, secure it, make sure that it is continuing to perform. If you need to add more machines to keep your desktop flows that you're hosting, working, all that kind of stuff should be surfaced in a way more straightforward, easy to get at way, and giving you access to all the individual telemetry events as well, like Cloudflow runs and desktop flow runs. And we've talked about some of that stuff in the recent past. So I'm pretty excited about what all has gone on in that Power Automate space. Connectors are the lifeblood of Power Platform. We just launched 6 new Copilot connector plugins and 74 new connectors, 116 connector updates. I'm not even going to click into this because there's so much kind of line level detail. I don't want to even talk through it, but please go in, pay attention to all these connector changes and updates to make sure you don't need to address your DLP policy differently after all these things came out. If you are a partner or anyone else who is building a connector that you would like to make available kind of to the general public, we've got a really nice way to get those certified and published so that they just show up in the connector store, if you will, that's part of the Cloudflow ecosystem. So read that if that fits for you. On Power Pages, I'm going to talk about a few of the specific new capabilities that are recently launched. One of them is this very nice, fresh theme that allows you to put a card gallery together that is much closer to what a lot of the traditional CMS platforms like a Sitecore and Adobe Experience Manager or some of those have to kind of do the rotating card images of things that are important in your world that you want to show out there. So nice that this is now an out-of-the-box control to just stick onto a page, stuff with a little data, and should just work. Then we have a bunch of ProDev enhancements. So if you're making Power Pages and you need some ProDev help to have somebody jump into VS Code and be able to get in there and work with things, that in VS Code, we now have Code Explain that understands all of these infrastructure and the what is in YAML, what is in XML, what is in JSON, what all is going on in HTML on the pages, and explain even liquid codes to help you understand what's happening on the page if you're in the ProDev and looking at that stuff. Part of the Power Pack capabilities with the CLI, we can migrate sites to the enhanced data model to take advantage of the new capabilities enhanced data model gives you on the sites. Co-presence in VS Code. So if you have more than one dev, both working on your code base in VS Code, they can see what each other are doing in real time. So really nice thing. Different things in VS Code to just make you more productive while working in it as well, including Copilot. So like the GitHub Copilot capabilities now can look across what Power Page capabilities need to have, including Power FX and liquid tags and things like that to let there be more of a Copilot experience to help the ProDevs in doing their work. So ProDevs rejoice if you've been working on Power Pages and you'd like some of these new capabilities. I talked about the Web Application Firewall, or WAF, as something that has been in the Power Page ecosystem for a while. Well, it's been in preview for a long time, now generally available. And instead of it being pretty much a black box that you just turned on or turned off, but that's all you could really do, and it was always a good idea to turn it on. But now when you turn it on, you can do geo filtering, you can do IP address filtering, you can do URI filtering, you can look at the logs, all these things that weren't possible before with the Web Application Firewall now is out there, and I would certainly encourage you, if you are configuring this and you would like to make some of these tweaks, click into this link that gets you into all the nitty-gritty details of best practices for what you might want to configure in that setup of the WAF. In AI Builder, one of the hottest sort of pieces of AI Builder right now is using the GPT prompt connector that lets you take control of the prompt and the way the GPT interacts with whatever you're telling it to go do so that you can generate a summary or generate new text or do whatever it is that you would like to be able to prompt GPT to do in the context of running some automation. And kind of the important things are you can be really descriptive in generating the prompt to give all the instructions and what you want to have the thing do in the large language model. So you describe it with as much detail as you want. You've got an unlimited canvas in there. You will have the ability to ground the data and say, restrict the data to only what's in this Dataverse table or what's in this SharePoint list or whatever else, that there's the ways to ground the prompt in there. And then you can also get in and even choose to say, when I'm sending this prompt in, I want it to be GPT 3.5 Turbo or 4. So you get a chance to choose the model. And within that model, you get to adjust on a slider scale. What do you want the temperature to be for how creative versus how strict the GPT is in sticking to exactly what the prompt says and what the data set that comes back is that you're using to ground it. So lots and lots of great capabilities here to be able to structure all of that. And then, of course, coming out of this is going to be JSON to make that easy to parse and easy to work with in the way Power apps, oh, I'm sorry, Power Automate and the cloud flows where you will be invoking this typically would like to see data come back. So all kinds of great stuff there for enhancements in that prompting of the GPT model in AI Builder. Another Power Page feature that I should make sure that you are aware of is to allow Power Pages to turn on a new type of search called an AI summarization search. So there's traditional search on Power Pages, and you can leave that as your keyword-based search if you would like. If you want to flip the switch to say, I would rather my search were AI-driven search that uses generative AI to look at all of the data that my site has access to and present the results back using that generative AI large language model capability, that is certainly something you can flip on. I would certainly play with that a little bit before just doing it in prod, but it's going to usually give better, richer, more productive, well-informed results than the traditional keyword search would have. For those of you who are managing your Power Platform environments and you are the admins and kind of manage your center of excellence, there is a great white paper that talks about how Microsoft is envisioned using almost all the newest capabilities to set up your environment strategy and when should you route people to and ask them to work in their own developer environment versus work in a shared dev environment versus a departmental dev environment, how to do ALM across those environments. There's just a nice environment strategy white paper that's about 30 pages long and has quite a few pictures and lays out different things that you want to think about and whether you're going to use managed environments or not to make sort of that management of them in groupings much easier and configurable without having to get out into all the nitty-gritty details. So good read, download it if you're one of those people to make sure that you're staying up to date on what our recommendations are. If you use the low-code pipelines tool to move code between dev, test, and prod in the Power Platform world, and you have environments that cross geos in terms of where those regions are, it's pretty easy now if you are a tenant admin to hop into the configuration of your pipeline and say, yeah, I would like to allow pipelines to seamlessly cross geos during these deployments. So if that will help you, nice to know that is a new feature that is possible in pipelines. This next one is, at least in my world, I've only found this in the preview environment. So it will run through the natural progression of code being released, first into the wave 1 environments, and then the wave 2 and wave 3 and wave 4. And so that's the wave 1 or the kind of canary preview environment is the only place I've seen this so far, but it will be rolling out soon so that as a maker working on your Canvas Power App, you'll be able to just click a button that lets you see right in that Maker Studio all of the YAML code and all of its glory if you want to see the nitty-gritty detail of what's being generated under the covers to make that UI come together in your WYSIWYG editor and allow you to snag parts of it and copy and paste YAML between screens or between elements on your screens so that if that becomes a easier way to reuse certain pieces of functionality instead of actually making a component that's reusable, knock yourself out. Copying and pasting YAML code will be supported. Really nice things in that world, along with the ability to check code directly into source control without even having to wait for the solution and the movement of some of that stuff. So pretty cool stuff coming in the Maker tools, especially for more of the pro devy type folks in our Canvas app space or the entire Power App space. And then the last one, there's been a regular, every couple of weeks, we get a new update on what's going on in trying to make sure that in your Canvas apps with the modern controls, I guess even the custom pages in model-driven apps. So everything that modern controls and the new theming contexts can bring forward to make that stuff easier, richer, and more powerful is continuing to be updated. Theming was a pretty big hit this time, along with being able to put icons in a button, which has been asked for forever. So love to know that that is something that's right there in the button capabilities these days. And quite a few other things that the people who are more of the designers of your apps are going to be really worried about. Nice to know that these are continuing to improve. Pay attention. All right, so that's it for Power Platform standalone. Let's talk about a couple things in our customer engagement space. So in the customer service, more or less contact center world, one of the things that has been redesigned completely is this idea of when I am on a interaction of whatever type, and I would like to consult another expert in my organization to help me solve a problem, that experience, even just doing a really basic search of, looking at a queue or putting a few words in, it's going to show you much richer information. I know you can't really see this without me blowing it up, but you get not only a person's name, but what is their title and what are their skills right in the result set. But not just that, you can actually look at the filtering capability down here and say, well, what are the skills that I need out of someone that I would like to consult as an expert in my organization, and go check the appropriate box or boxes, and it will narrow the list immediately to only the people in my organization who have those skills. So I think that making it much quicker and easier to find those is one big advantage. And then we also redesigned things to just give you a lot more white space so that as you do the search, instead of seeing 2 or maybe 3 experts, hopefully you can see 5 or 6 to make it a little easier to just not have to scroll up or down to look at the list. So take advantage of that if it's going to help your contact center folks find helpers more easily. This is really just a reminder in my book, but if you are using Sales Copilot, don't forget that Sales Copilot not only crawls all of your CRM information as it's trying to help you figure things out that are going to help you be productive across your lead management and your opportunity management or finding information about the accounts or whatever else, but that it's also hitting the graph and finding all the things that are in OneDrive and SharePoint. And if there is a lot of sales documentation or presentations that are sitting out there related to pursuits or products or whatever else, that can be found by Copilot just as much as the actual CRM data. And this is just kind of reminding you that if you click the little sparkle icon, which is this little guy way down here, that it will actually throw up some prompts that are things like show related files to whatever it is that I'm on right now, which is usually be like an opportunity that has products tied to it or whatever. And you can say show product related files, and it'll actually bring back anything that it finds for presentations or Word docs or PDFs or whatever are stored out on SharePoint that might be things the product team puts out there that will be really helpful in your pursuits. So just use that if that's going to help you. And the last thing is a new capability in Sales Copilot that if you're using Sales Copilot, look on the left nav bar for the Copilot icon. And I guess there's not a really good image. You can see it right over here that this Copilot icon, that now when you click on that icon in the Sales Hub, or if you add that icon to whatever model-driven app you are putting out there for your sellers as a node on the sitemap, will bring up this immersive Copilot experience that will give you a bunch of prompts, and it will show you visualizations in much larger format. It just opens up the Copilot to not just be like that right quarter of your screen, but will allow the Copilot experience to become full screen to make it way more immersive and hopefully helpful when you need to get that immersive workspace experience. So I guess this is a better view down here where it's showing you where that Copilot would exist and what it would do when you click on it. So I think with that, I have finally covered all the content I planned to bring forward, Dan. So I'll let you take over and talk about all the other good stuff we have out there.
Quite a bit of content. So it's like,
lots of announcements.
Last week I had, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, a fortnight ago, I had a ton of content. Not so much this time, but we'll see. Not as many updates because it's like, last week we covered the 10.0.40, a little bit on HR updates. But anyways, let's get started. Let's talk about, I talked a little bit about the project, project operations, but I didn't cover in depth the project operations light deployment. So there's some really nice features within the project light. So first of all, before it was limited to under 1,000 tasks, like 500 tasks or something like that. But now it's like we can do 1,000 tasks. So it's like if you have a work break breakdown structure, you can do 1,000 tasks on this. So now the limitations have changed. So the project is like 1,000 tasks in a project. That's great. It's like, so it's got to be a humongous project if you're building a dam or something to have like 1,000 lines on that. And we've also increased the duration up to 10 years. Total number of resources of 300, lengths of 600. All kinds of different things. But on the we're going to increase that also to 1,500. So it's going to triple in size. Also on the task limitations, so that is increased to 10 levels. So it's like 10 level hierarchy. You can actually nest those in there. You can have 20 predecessors or successors to that. 1,250 days, 10 years of durations for summaries, so on and so forth. So quite a bit of changes within the project. So you can actually do a much larger project. Also, we're allow editing within the contours of this. So you can see the assigned, when something is assigned to a task, you'll be able to see that. And it's like in their daily, weekly, or monthly buckets, what I'm supposed to be doing. And then you can also see what's unassigned until, like as an unassigned task, you can't reel it into it until it's been assigned to somebody for the user on that side. But we can also contour those. And what does a contour mean in the context of a project? So if you have task requirements and then it might be like a 5-day, 40-hour week, right? And so what you can do is you can break this down into 8-hour, 5 days, and that's the contour of what we need to actually those tasks or assignments on how they're broken down in each one of those contours of that. So that's within the project ops now too.
That's quite a bit in the actual execution of projects and planning of projects that's getting expanded there, Dan.
It is. There's quite a bit. It's like, we kind of had a lull period, but it's like there's a lot of things that are being pushed into this, right? And the next thing is like, it's a little thing, but you need to know it if you use project operations. So on the work breakdown structure, save notification. So there's a little icon on there to say, if like it's been saved or not. And why is this important? Because you're on the web version, we're not updating it with every single entry or keystroke on that. It does this periodically, and you can actually hit the save button on that. That just saves like the bandwidth and the packaging of that. So if it's actually saving, if it's saved right there. If it's not saved, it's going to show you the little blue circle swirling around, and it actually is not saved, right? Why is that important? Because if it's not saved, it's not updating things like, for instance, you have an estimate that goes on. If you're doing like a work breakdown structure, it has an updated estimate because it hasn't saved back and done those calculations. So a little thing, but it's like operationally, you need to know those that thing. Also, like we weren't allowing to editing of like the project manager field and other things, because we didn't want that to be customizable, because we didn't want that to have a negative impact on anything downstream. We're allowing that. Some things we're still not allowing, but just FYI, you can actually edit those fields now and do some customization and management of that.
Doesn't that say audit, not edit on the PM?
Oh, did I say audit? Oh, yes.
I think you said edit, but
I did.
Really
okay, yeah.
Audit.
Okay, audit. Yes, thank you, Bart.
Yeah, just making sure.
So, anyways, there's also intelligent multi-factor resource recommendation. Now, that's very different from what Bart was showing and talking about, because it's like that's actually on a customer service kind of a chat. This is for assigning resources to it. So if you need somebody that knows, like I think you had Python, English, and French on there. So that might be a language thing, right? It's actually for the skill you're going to match. Or parcel tongue, little Harry Potter joke on that for Python. That's better than my 2 jokes here, I think. My nerd is showing. So anyways, it's like if you want to say, it's like, okay, I want the experience. It's like, what's the cost or their availability? It's like, what's the skill match in those? It's like, so you can actually put those together and compare those with other on the project. And the last thing is like, there's a Copilot for time entry. To say, it's like, okay, to be able to create real-time entry like drafts from a project and assignments, generate the comments and all that stuff. So, whenever I have to do a project and enter like time, it's like, it's not my favorite task. So for me, that's just a wonderful feature. So that's projects. Quite a few updates, as you like said, Bart. It's like we're putting a whole lot more into it. Now, on the flip side of that is HR. Since we pulled HR out to make its own product, then we pulled it back into the whole finance and supply chain. That's taken a couple years, and it was like there hasn't been a ton of feature updates. But I know that there's a lot on the horizon. So this calendar year, we're going to be talking a lot more about it. But for this update, it's like, there's a streamlined employee entry just to make it easier to do additional payroll entities. So if you want to do some management or integrations into that, so it's like the data entity models are there. And then there's an alternate key just to make performance for reporting and things like that. So not a ton of updates. Again, kind of the flip side of projects, but you're going to see a lot more. And the next is Business Central. Business Central is just a great little tool, right? So I have two portions of this. So first of all, there's on the 24.1, there is some Spain updates for the SII for the GL account. So it's like that's for the posting for that Spanish localization. But if we actually kind of drill down into some updates that have been there, so on some updates, and I just want to cover a few of these. So the first thing is use synthetic relationships to expose more Business Central's data in Dataverse. Basically, these are virtual tables, and we've talked about virtual tables within finance and supply chain. So you can expose all of these synthetic relationships within Business Central into the Dataverse, so you can make, like a Power App and automatically update within Business Central. So super cool, nice features. Again, getting to more toward a One Dynamics ecosystem into that. Also, it's like
I was just going to say those virtual tables are fantastic that we pre-built them from both BC and F&O. And now we're actually doing a lot more things outside of our normal ecosystem to let virtual tables connect to just about anything.
That's exactly right. It's like before, it's like I used to have to run all kinds of gyrations. It's like I can use actually a Power Automate to actually update these tables and all of these other goofy things. It's like now my life is simple with these virtual tables. So on the next thing is I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to talk about everything, but it's like, finding match and record and Power Automate flow. This just allows, it's like, before it was just like if you do a call on this or you do a search or find, it would give it a collection of lists. It's like you might want to pick this one. This one now is like the syntax is the O data and find one record, so it only pushes back one. Just for those of you actually just pulling records into it, through Power Automate, or you're going to make a Power App that's just makes it simpler. Field service integration into Business Central is another thing that I wanted to talk about. So first of all, it takes the work order and then takes the service account and the billing account from Business Central. It takes the central project. So again, this the service management, just like it's in F&O, is actually tied to a project, and those are nested into that. And so it takes the project and that task work order. It looks at inventory on hand. It looks at costs and price. It looks at the bookable resources from Business Central. So nice tight integration. Again, more of a One Dynamics environment that we're working in. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, I think, was Power Automate. Okay, yeah. Start creating Power Automates with the Power Automate flow. So this uses the natural language interface to create those Power Automate flows from Business Central. So, Bart, you've been talking about those natural language flows to use a Copilot to actually develop that. Now it's using it. You can use that with the Business Central data and features and functions within that. So that's a nice update into that. So I wanted to talk about that. The regions and countries, I always talk about those, but let me drill into this one. There's quite a few. So it's like Belize, Burkina Faso, French Polynesia, Gabon, Gibraltar, I think, Turks and Caicos, Laos, St. Kitts, Uzbekistan. The one that I thought was kind of interesting is Vatican City.
It is its own country.
It is. It's the world's smallest country. Is a little factoid, right? And then like Yemen. So it's like I thought, I don't know if there's a lot of business in Vatican City, but who knows, right? That is what updates for some of those countries. A couple other things under this is I want to talk about. There's a linked environment to the Dataverse integration. So what this allows is like you have data safe, you have the boundaries, so you can link it into the through this Dataverse, BC into the Dataverse, and it's an easy way to to integrate with the other D365 apps. So that's nice. And there's also another one that I want to, like Business Central, the Power Platform environments. So what this one does, it inherits the settings from the Power Platform, such as encryption keys or customer managed encryption keys, right? And then you have a default target environment for those integrations. So you might have multiple environments, but this will be the target or the default one. And then but it has to be in the same geo of that. So it's got to be in the same geography where where your tenant is. So that's what I want to update. Oh, and then the last thing is automate country of origin listed for item tracking code for intrastat reporting. So basically it's like, what country did we purchase it from? What country did we sell it? And we have to actually do reports. When it tags all of those, you can inherit all of that from the origin, from the sales and purchase, and report that automatically instead of having to do that manually. So those are some updates in Business Central. Now, in finance and supply chain, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but this is important because I've been talking about this for a couple years now. We're moving away from the lifecycle services and moving over to the Power Platform Admin Center for everything administrative with finance and supply chain. Now, we used to have to make, all the production environments and all the sandbox environments from LCS, and you'd have to get a specific prescription or subscription, excuse me. I'm having a hard time with words today, apparently, Bart. Subscription, whatever. So you'd have to get a subscription for those and then deploy those to Lifecycle Services. Well, now we're going to the Power Platform Admin Center, and it's going to change. Now it's going to be capacity based. So you're going to put out those environments, create those environments, those test and prod or sandbox, at different levels through the Power Platform Admin Center. Well, that's cool, right? But now you have to kind of look at this a different way. So you can actually manage that. You're responsible for managing that capacity. And it can get expensive if you have these huge environments, right? So if you're going to manage that environment, you have to find out who's responsible. It's like, so it's not a one size fit all that actually run the cleanups and, archive or delete old data with this, because you have those access to that. So first of all, you want to make sure you include the business users, the BI and reporting team, the customization team, right? And like what they're doing, like for the BI team, what they need to be like working with, they have old data that they need to see. Auditors and controllers, it's like, okay, from what region or what financial information do we have to take? From the D365 admins, it's like, okay, like we're running these batch jobs. We don't want to disrupt any of them. How long do we want to keep this? And then, of course, M365 for the reporting within the admin center. So for the tools for doing this are, first of all, the F&O storage capacity report, and then there's the just-in-time access screens, right? So we're going to drill down to this in the next section, but, we can drill down to the table level and see how large each one of these tables are. And so, are these too big? Are they auditing, files or not, right? So, and then the just-in-time database access, with regular production, finance, and supply chain, you can't actually directly access the database, but you can in these sandboxes. So we can actually drill down and look at these that are like refreshed from production to be able to drill down to each one of those tables and have near real-time access to that. So, and the features are, again, it's like, this is for the Power Platform. We can drill down into that Power Platform and look at that, like, that environment cycle, and look at, what's refreshing, from these sandboxes. We can look at the capacity report. So we're going to see a little bit more in this next portion of this. So this is actually a two-part blog. So this is the first part of the blog. It's like, okay, what it is, but what are the things we need to look at and execute for this? So first of all, you have to start by planning, how are you actually going to decommission unneeded sandbox or actually commission the ones that you have? So like, what's the process for this? So you want to have a strategy for this. And so with the strategy of not only for the sandboxes, but what are we going to do for like the different tables? So it's like, how long do we want to retain that? Do we want to look at specific tables? Do we want to look at the largest ones first? It's like, so like naturally, it's like, these are the huge ones, logging tables, for instance. And then you don't overlook the smaller ones, but let's do a Pareto analysis of that. Let's get rid of the stuff that we can, the largest stuff first. So first of all, you want to review the table. So if you go to the Power Platform, you can go into that individual environment with those databases, and we can actually look at those database tables individually. So we can actually drill down and look at that detail and look at the largest tables, right? And then it's like you need to consider, it's like, okay, what's the current business data that we want to have? Have you turned on logging by accident, or you did it for testing, and then you forgot to shut it off? What are these tables doing? It's like what team members, which which is in the part one, who do we need to include for these different tables? So you want to look at those different tables and see who's it going to affect, and what business owner or admin owner is going to be part of that decision of what we're going to do with that data retention, or we're going to purge or delete this different data. And then after you go through that, you need to take some action. So, before we do that, it's like, is it currently used, right? How long do we want to retain this? It's like, so on batch history, you want to keep it for 30 days or 7 days in a sandbox. Do you have some things you want to keep for 90 days and just have it automatically purged? And then, like, what's the life cycle of that? Can it be purged, archived, or just moved to long-term storage, right? And then after that, you implement the data storage, right? You take action, so you start the cleanups, you update the retention settings. You have, what are you going to archive on that? And you need to consider things like, what's no longer needed or not. And then some best practices on this. Do you delete or archive only data that is no longer required? Did you need to consider the impact of that data, the integration or reports? Like for sales data, we need that for forecasting. So that's an important data that we might not want to get rid of, for instance. And then you want to choose the range of that. It's like, so if this is like 10 or 12-year-old data, do we really need that for sales forecasting? Because times have changed. So again, the world is changing as far as administration for managing your environments, and it's moving over to the Power Platform Admin Center, and that includes how we're going to actually manage the data, because you're paying for that separately than you would with the old subscriptions to the sandbox level. So that's what I have for my section today, Bart. And then I think
we had no shortage of content.
No, not at all.
Tons of solution updates, so pay attention if there's any of these things you're using and you want the latest and greatest. All those updates are available to take if you would like. And I think with that, we can say sayonara for the month of May, and we'll see everybody in the middle of June.
Bon voyage. Take care, everybody.